All right, guys, I'm in the garage here. We're going to install a beadlock wheel on a tire. I just want to show you the process. I'm going to use a tire machine. You could probably do this without a tire machine. You just need like a tire stand. You can use a bucket, something like that. This is the wheel without the ring on here. So here's the ring. The ring fits on here. These are made by Martian wheels. These are the Cyber Rover wheels. These are made specifically for like the Cybertruck. See how this ring kind of sits like that? And then we've got 24 bolts that bolt this down all the way around to pinch the tire in this area here. So there's a textured surface here and a textured surface on the ring. And when this gets bolted down, it squeezes the bead of the tire so it doesn't move. This is good for off-roading, where you can air the tire down and the bead's you're not going to lose the bead over the edge of the tire. It's going to really stay in place. All right, I got my wheel put on this is my tire mounting machine. It's clamped on there. First step I want to get my TPMS sensor put in here. For our tire, we want to only lubricate the bottom part of the bead. I'm using this Murphy tire lubricant. I use this for all my mounting. I want to make sure I have the ring off of the rim, so this is the bare rim. Now, if you had some tire irons, you could probably just get this on without the machine. I have the machine, so I'm just going to use it. It's also helpful to get this top bead seated right here as well, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, that bead's always the easiest to go on anyways with a machine. So if you're just doing this with like tire irons, you could just kind of work your way around it and get that put on. Now, after doing this is the fourth one I've done today, and so I just want to, this is probably the hardest part of the process, and I don't know why that's the case. I don't know if it is just with this specific wheel that I'm using, the tire wheel combo, but what I want to do is I want to get the bead to sit on this. So there's this lip right here, and the tire is going to sit on this lip, and it's the exact same size as the tire, and so there's very little give. It's hard to get it down, and so I'm going to show you the process that I've been using to get this down. Okay, I just want to kind of get it into position here. You can see how I want to get it down, but some of the tire, like on this side, all this side of the tire, all the way to here, this side is up on the lip here. We need to get it down. Now, you can do a few things. First, before I start working on it, I want to get the dot lined up with my valve stem. That's going to move around quite a bit. One thing you can do is you can get screwdrivers and kind of just pry this down slowly. You can get a couple screwdrivers and you can slowly kind of work your way around, making sure you're getting that high area pushed down. I'm just getting that in there, pulling it back, and I'm putting the other screwdriver kind of right next to it. And so I'm holding this one and then I'm just moving the next one over. So I'm just kind of walking these very, very careful and not too far apart. Okay, got that whole part there. It looks like everything's now seated. There's no little tiny edge up over on top of the lip here. It looks like the tire's completely tucked around this edge. And you'll know that if I try to spin this now to like if I needed to line up the dot, it's actually really difficult to spin it. You'll kind of know that when it's fully seated down. Now, before I put the ring on, I just want to get a dead blow hammer here. You want to make sure it's not going to damage the rim or the tire. I'm just going to tap it all the way around. Just want to make sure that's like fully seated down. I'm ready to put my ring on. I have the washers set inside of all of the holes, so they're all good. I'm just going to try to light up the holes. I'm lining up this notch with the TPMS sensor. I want to line up the holes best I can. Now I'm going to get all my bolts, and I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize lubricant on the bolts just so I don't get any corrosion in there. I do live in an area where there's snow, salt on the road, so it can corrode a little bit, so I just want to make sure I'm putting that on the end of the bolts. So I have a little towel here. I have all my bolts. There's 24 of these, and I have my anti-seize lubricant, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the threads. You can see just a little bit on there. Not a lot. Doesn't need to be a lot to really be effective. And I'm just going to start with like 4, like top, bottom, on the sides. And I'll just kind of thread those in by hand. partially started here. I just want to use my socket. These are a 13 millimeter socket, so I'm just going to start these down by hand. Now this is the kind of tedious part here. I won't record all of this because it'll be way too long of a video, so I'm just going to do the 4 on the sides initially here. Ultimately, I want to use like a crisscross pattern as I'm tightening them down, and then I want to torque them down, get a torque wrench to 25 foot-pounds. Alternating pattern. And what will happen is when you're tightening these down, as you tighten down a set here, these get loose because it's pushing it down, and so you kind of are going around multiple times, just kind of slowly tightening them down. That's why you want to go in kind of alternating patterns, so that way you're not tightening one side only and then the other side. So just kind of a star pattern, or back and forth, side to side. So now I have those 4 tightened. I'm going to go to these other 4 I have in, just kind of a crisscross pattern on those. Once I have the bolts started and threaded in a little bit, and I know that it's not cross-threaded, I will use an impact driver just to help speed up the process. This isn't going to torque them down, it's just going to snug them down. It's just going to help quicken this process. We have 24 of these bolts to do. This step does take some time, so I'm using my impact driver and then just tightening them down with my socket. And then once I have them relatively tight, I'm going to go back with my torque wrench here, and then I'm going 25 foot-pounds on each of the bolts and going back and forth, making sure they're torqued down to the proper spec. Beadlock ring completely on with all the bolts secure. We can now fill it up with air. We're going to seat the bead. This has a little bit of space here, so I'm going to use my bead bazooka to like blast the bead to fill it up with air. Okay, you see how there's quite a bit of gap here? The air's not going to fill in, so I've got to use my bead bazooka. So this thing's good for these big sidewalls to be able to force a ton of air into the tire. Now it's going to start to fill up. So I'm just going to fill it up to my PSIs, around 42 PSI. Now, if you don't have that bead bazooka like I have, you can take the wheel assembly to a tire store to have them inflate it and to balance it for you. I put these on my balancer, so I got them all balanced, and I got them on the truck here. They look really good. Turned out great. One thing you want to do, the maintenance-wise on these bolts, is you want to make sure that you're constantly checking the torque on these. I've driven about 200 miles so far on this, and then I've come back and kind of retorqued them. A couple of them were a little loose, so I'm probably going to check, I don't know, every 500 to 800 miles, just kind of check the torque, make sure they're torqued down, because that's one of the dangers of the beadlock, is that if you just neglect the torque on these, the bolts could eventually come out, and so you want to make sure that you're checking the torque on those guys. So anyway, that's the process. Hopefully that's helpful or useful for you. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.